with Asatina Kataka. Thanks for joining us, Asatina.
Thank you, Ryan.
And Asatina, what program are we going to be talking about today?
Today we'll be talking about Art, Culture, and Social Assistance Grant Program, which I'm the program manager for.
Perfect. So we've got the expert in the house to talk to us about arts, culture, and social assistance. Sure. We're going to jump right in today, and we're going to try to keep this to about a half hour. So if you have any questions at any point, feel free to leave those in the comments section. We'll try to reserve a few minutes at the end to get to any of the questions you might have. And any of the questions that we don't address on the live stream, we will follow up with in our frequently asked questions document, which we update about on a weekly basis. So without further ado, we're going to get started. So before we really dive into the details, Asatina, I was wondering if you could give us just an overview on the Arts, Culture, and Social Assistance Grants Program. So what is the program about?
Sure, Ryan. So the Art, Culture, and Social Assistance Grant Program is a program that intend to support, sponsor any project that is promoting arts, culture, humanities, also provide assistance, social assistance to individual and household. So it could be any project related to this category that are cited, like ranging from creating or renovating, for example, a museum, any project pertaining to digital art history, music festival, or any project that provide general support to the needy through counseling services, housing services, the list goes on.
Yeah, so a pretty wide range of different project types that could go into this. Really anything falling under arts, humanities, and culture or social assistance. So that's a great overview. And kind of a follow-up question for you, Asatina. So we're talking about projects that predominantly focus on arts, humanities, and culture, or social assistance. What do we mean when we say predominantly focus on those areas?
By predominant, we mean grant budget line items related to the project focus area should total at least 50% or more of the cost of the total of the project.
Okay, so in other words, more than half of the grant dollars are going towards activities that could fall in that focus area.
Exactly.
So that's kind of something that we'll leave up to applicants to justify how their budget and how the use of the dollars is going to be related to arts, humanities, and culture or social assistance. And we'll dive into that when we get to the application in a little bit.
Sure.
But before we get to the application and before folks start thinking too much about kind of applying for this, we should probably address who's eligible to apply and what kinds of applicants we might see. So where can we find basic eligibility requirements for the North and South Omaha Recovery Grant Program and specifically for the Arts, Culture, and Social Assistance application round?
Sure, Ryan. So for general eligibility requirement for all NSORG program, let's visit our website, especially section 3.
Okay.
So
let's start at our website. So we're at opportunity.nebraska.gov. That is our homepage here.
Okay.
So we're going to go to programs and then economic recovery.
Exactly.
And we're going to look for the North and South Omaha Recovery Grant Program. That's the grant program that we're talking about today. There's a couple different links that'll take you to the same place. And here we are. So you mentioned the program manual, right?
Yes, program manual section 3 is what we check eligibility requirement for all NSORG programs.
So we're going to scroll down here to the program resources, and this second link here is for our program manual. And I'm just going to click on that here and try and make this a little bit bigger. And you said section 3 under eligibility is going to be our kind of starting point, right?
Exactly.
So let's start with general requirements for North and South Omaha Recovery Grants. So in order to be eligible for any of the North and South Omaha Recovery Grant programs, what sort of things do you need to hit?
That's the right section to visit if you would like to get a look at what the general eligibility requirement is for all NSORG programs. So if we scroll down all the way to the bottom, we narrow down to Art, Culture, and Social Assistance Grant Program. It's the very last at the bottom.
So we're going to dive into the specific funding category of Arts, Culture, and Social Assistance, which is all the way at the bottom of this section.
Sure.
And that is right here, Arts, Culture, and Social Assistance. So this is a really good starting point if you're considering applying for an arts, culture, and social assistance grant. So obviously that section we were on just before, section 3.1, has the general eligibility requirements, things like being located in the city of Omaha in a qualified census tract or economic recovery area. Being listed in the coordination plan or appendices, which we'll get to in a minute here. So let's talk about the specific requirements then for arts, culture, and social assistance grants.
So you're eligible to apply for this funding category. Number one, if your project pertains to art, culture, humanities, and social assistance as we listed above, as we discussed earlier. And that's the number one requirement. So number two requirement, your project, you're eligible to apply for this funding category if your project will be held in Quiz City's qualified census tract or economic redevelopment areas. And we can check more, we can confirm that, like how to determine eligibility based on the location on our website by visiting the map on our website.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're not sure where the qualified census tracts and economic redevelopment areas are, those are all listed on our website on this map. You can even use this magnifying glass tool to type in a specific address, and it'll zoom you right to the location. You can see there's a good number of areas in both North and South Omaha here that fall in the eligible census tracts. So that's a great tool to use to determine if you're in the right location for this.
Right.
And then beyond that, what else do we need to be thinking about besides location and pertaining to arts, culture, and social assistance?
Okay, so you are eligible to apply for this funding category. Also, if your project has been recommended for funding and designated as a catalyst or quick win project in the coordination plan, also known as the Awesome Plan. And
yes, that's a great point. So I just want to hold on that here because that's really important before we go any further. And I'm just going to highlight here on the program manual where that is listed. So an organization whose project was recommended for funding and designated as a catalyst or a quick win project in the coordination plan may apply for this grant, right?
Sure. Yes, Ryan.
So we need to probably break this down. And I think this is probably the most important thing for folks to understand when it comes to eligibility is that in order to be eligible for funding under the arts, culture, and social assistance opportunity here, you need to be designated as a catalyst or quick win project in the coordination plan. So what are we even talking about here?
And you need to have been recommended for funding.
Exactly.
And we would like to check more details on, you want to confirm if you were recommended for funding and how much you were recommended for. So let's visit our legislature website to figure that out.
Yeah, to figure out if you were recommended for funding, you're going to go back to our website right under the who is eligible to apply. Exactly. This is right underneath the map if you're having trouble finding that. There's a link here to the legislature's website where you can find that plan for the coordination plan, right? Right. So under this first section here, Economic Recovery Special Committee Reports, you'll see a link to this PDF document, which is the plan. If we click on that, it's going to bring up this 80-page document, which is the Economic Recovery Grant Program Coordination Plan. So there's a lot of information in here, but specifically for determining whether your project was recommended for funding, there's about 4 different areas you'll want to look at in this document. The first is a table, which is located, and I'm going to scroll here, on page, here we go, page 29. We'll see Table 3 is the North 16th Street geographic area focus. You'll see a number of different proposals listed here. So for arts, culture, and social assistance, you have to be one of these proposals that was recommended for funding. And the recommendations are this last column on the table here. So we can see here we've got a handful, about 5 different programs proposals, I should say, that were recommended for funding in the North 16th Street geographic area focus. And then these other ones down here that are supplemental proposals were recommended for $0. So Those ones, you're welcome to apply if you're recommended for $0, but the most that you can request, and we'll get to this in a minute as well,
Exactly.
is whatever you were recommended for funding on for this particular category. So this only applies to the arts, culture, and social assistance category. But if you were applying under this category and you're recommended for funding, the most you can request here would be 2 million or 40 million or 10 million or whatever is listed in this final column here. And as I mentioned, there's a couple of different tables. So that first one was on page 16, I believe. And then the next one here is page 38. Table 4, this is the North 24th Street geographic areas of focus. Again, there's a handful of recommended projects here that would be eligible to submit for funding under arts, culture, and social assistance. And then we've got, I think, 2 more tables here. This one is for South 24th Street, so there's 2 more proposals that would be eligible here. And here's the Q Street focus area. 4 more eligible proposals that could come in under arts, culture, and social assistance.
Sure.
And finally, we've got a table here of some quick wins, which is right here. So those ones were recommended for various amounts of funding. And any of these that are in that arts, culture, and social assistance focus area could apply for this.
Sure, Ryan. And please note, Ryan, that if you were, you can only request the amount you were recommended for or less.
Okay.
For example, if you're recommended for 1 million, that's all you can ask for. If you're submitting the same project, you cannot request more than 1 million or less if your project has changed.
Absolutely, and that's a great point. And we can look at the program manual here, this next sentence, if the organization requests less than or equal to the amount that was recommended for funding. So as you're saying,
Exactly.
up to the amount that you were recommended for in that plan in one of those 5 tables. If you are requesting, and this is actually kind of an exciting part about this, if you're requesting less than or equal to the amount that you were recommended for, and you meet all other threshold requirements, right? You're in the focus area of arts and humanities or social assistance, and you're checking all the right boxes, the grant request will be funded up to the amount of the request at the discretion of DED. And so we'll talk about this as well. We're not actually competitively evaluating
Yes.
the applications we receive under this.
Yes, as long as you respond to all eligibility requirements and you qualify, you pass the threshold, then yes, you will get funded for your project.
Yeah, so this is a way that we're really prioritizing those projects that are listed in the coordination plan, which is what the bill that we're implementing here directs us to do. So really great opportunity for those projects that were recommended that fall in that focus area to be able to receive some funding.
Sure.
So let's say that you're watching this with us right now. You're going through kind of those different eligibility requirements, thinking through this in your mind. You can tell that you were recommended for funding, that you think that you do fit in that focus area of either arts and humanities or social assistance, and you decide that you're going to apply for this grant. Where do people go to actually apply? What's the next step once I've decided, I think I'm eligible, I think this is the category for me?
Okay, let's go back to our DD web page.
Okay.
So from there, we will scroll all the way down. We will go to program. Okay, so we have all the NSORG program listed here. So let's scroll down to Art, Culture, and Social Assistance Grant. So we see the apply button. We will click on the...
And before we click on that, I just want to point out here that we have Asatina's contact information right above the Apply Now button, and that's for a reason. So as you're filling out this application, or as you're even thinking about clicking the Apply Now button and thinking, is it worth my time to submit an application? Do I meet those requirements? If that's something that you want to talk through with Asatina, or if you run into any questions at any point, great place to find her contact information right here.
Sure.
Okay, so we're going to assume that we're ready to apply,
Okay.
And we're going to click the Apply Now button.
The Apply Now button, it will take you to our application portal. So once you're there, it looks like, Ryan, it's because you already have an account, so you're able to quickly log in. Can we go back to the previous page?
Yeah, so
where they have to register before they have access to the application.
We'll do that here. So when we click Apply, it's actually going to ask us to log in first.
Okay.
And if you don't have an account, you can register, as Asatina mentioned.
Yes.
So there's a button down here. You can click Register. It'll ask you a few questions about your organization. You'll create a username and password, and go ahead and click register at the bottom. And in about 1 minute, you'll have an Amplifund account. So for our purposes, we have an account queued up here that we're going to use to demonstrate what this application looks like. So let's go ahead and dive into this. I want to highlight a few areas that are going to be important. So first of all, good to give your application a name, whatever name you would like to give it that will demonstrate what the program that you're applying for is. That helps us when we're reviewing applications to know what we're talking about. So give it a good name. Here's where you're going to put in the amount that you're requesting. So remind us one more time, Asatina, for the Arts, Culture, and Social Assistance Grant, what is the maximum amount that you can request?
The amount you were initially recommended for in the coordination plan, or
Perfect.
less. It cannot be any more than what you were recommended for.
Absolutely.
So for example, like I mentioned earlier, if you were recommended for 1 million, that's the maximum you can apply for.
Okay, so let's pretend that we are applying for a proposal that was recommended for $1 million.
Okay.
We'll type in $1 million right here. We're going to assume that we're going to go after that full $1 million on this application here. And once you've typed in all of the required fields, you can go ahead and click Mark as complete. This is actually really important. In order to submit the application, you have to click Mark as complete on every section.
Exactly.
If you don't have something filled out, so for example, if I forgot to put in the state, then it won't let me. Let me refresh here so that I can demonstrate that. So here, if you click Mark as in progress, if I leave something open, it won't let me click Mark as complete. So you can see that that is grayed out until I have everything that I need entered, and then it turns green again, and I can mark it as complete. So once we have that basic information in, that's going to take us to kind of the meat and potatoes of the application here, which is the application forms. So I want to highlight a few of these forms. It's important, and I would recommend early on, as you're getting ready to apply, reviewing all of the different forms and understanding what documents are going to be required, so that you give yourself enough time to gather all of those documents. We're just going to highlight a few of these that I think are really important, and I think we're going to start with part one.
So part one is more about information about your organization, like contact information or anything else that is related to your organization. And part two is more about like, I believe, Ryan, that's the partner entities.
Yes.
In case you're partnering with another organization. So part two will be the section where they will ask you questions about your partners.
Absolutely.
And
so
then,
good to kind of review that early on if you are interested in partnering someone, so you can understand what documents are going to be required of your partner to provide.
Exactly.
So you can start those conversations early on.
Sure. And then part three, let's move on to part three, which is threshold questions. So I really like this particular section. It has like tons of elements that will guide you, that will tell you as you're moving forward with your answering questions. It will tell you right off if you're eligible to apply for these programs, because we have included a lot of notes. You know, at each question that you answer, you will know, you will be able to tell if you're eligible to even move forward with the application or to just stop right there.
Yeah, that's a great point. So
Exactly.
this is a good place if you're still kind of unsure whether you qualify for this grant. You can start here on part three, and it'll walk you through a series of questions, as Asatina mentioned, that will help you come to that conclusion yourself. So for example, this first question here, is the project you're applying for listed in the coordination plan or appendices of the Economic Recovery Special Committee? So that was these documents over here, right? Here's the coordination plan, here's the appendices. This is one of the baseline requirements we've talked about on the other live streams for all of our NSORG programs.
Exactly.
If you say no, it's going to tell you if the project is not listed, your application will not be considered. So we're basically giving folks a heads up here as you answer these questions of whether you're going to meet that threshold requirement. So we're going to go ahead and say yes and assume that we are listed in there, since we're pretending that we were recommended, right? So we're definitely listed in there if we were recommended for $1 million. And we'll fill out these questions here that show where we're listed in that plan and where that recommendation is. You'll see this next one here. Was your project recommended for funding in the coordination plan? If you say no, we get a note.
Exactly.
And so this is another way that we can catch if you're thinking about applying and you realize, oh, I wasn't recommended for funding, and you say no here, you're actually going to get a note here that tells you you may not request a grant here. If you're not recommended, the maximum you could request is $0. So not really requesting a grant, right? In order to actually request a grant, you need to have some sort of funding recommendation in that coordination plan. So if we say yes, we'll get some additional questions here that'll have us specify where that recommendation is located, and it'll ask for you to type in the amount you're recommended for and your current grant request. And let's talk about this next section here. Is your current grant request less than or equal to the amount that your project was recommended for? So if we say yes, we're good.
Exactly.
If we say no, once again, we're only funding grants up to the amount of the recommendation. So we're really driving home eligibility in this section. And again, we'll be asking if you're a Catalyst or Quick Win. There's some questions about location. I want to really focus with you, though, Asatina, on this project focus area section. So can you walk us through what we're asking for here a little bit?
For the project focus area, we just want to know what your project is. I mean, more description about your project and know if it aligns with the program. So yes, in that section, that's what we want to know.
Absolutely.
And I wanted to mention a point also, Ryan, is that for the threshold questions, if it's important to know if you're eligible to apply under this funding category, because as you're moving forward, it tells you, it guides you. So once you know you're not eligible, you may not be eligible for this particular project, but we have 8 NSORG programs. You might be eligible for another one. So it's always good to double check and not waste your chance, because you only have like one chance.
Yes, and that's a really important point too, right?
Yes.
So if you have a proposal that you're applying for, you can only submit that under one of the 8 NSORG funding categories, as we've talked about on some of the other live streams. Really important to reiterate that here. As you're going through this section, if you determine that this is not going to be your best shot because you're not going to be eligible, it's probably a good idea to look at some of the other categories that might be a better fit for your program.
Sure.
And so as you're mentioning, this project focus area is one of the key elements of making sure you're aligned with what this grant is, the purpose of this grant is for, which is to promote arts and humanities or provide social assistance. So this is where we're kind of checking that step on the threshold requirements. If we're not in one of those focus areas, you're not eligible for this grant. So you're going to need to choose one or the other. And then you're going to need to justify your response.
Exactly.
So as Asatina is saying, this is a really good opportunity to give a little bit of detail about your project and really argue that it does fall under that arts and humanities or social assistance focus area. And then we talked about predominant early on, so totaling 50% or more of the grant budget line items, the cost of that project. So this is a really important section too for justifying that your grant budget line items are aligned with that project focus area. And we're going to actually skip around to the last section in just a second here because it's important to make sure that you're submitting an application that's consistent throughout. So you're going to want to put in, your justification for what specific line items you're going to be requesting that the grant pay for in your project, and how those are related to arts and humanities or social assistance on this page here. Once you've put that in, you're going to want to hop over to the budget section, and we can take just a second to look at this. And so if you have, a category, let's say, providing assistance is the name of the category. That is something that you're going to want to make sure you reference on that previous page. So we've referenced it here. We'll reference it again here. And you want to make sure that you're consistent throughout, and even include a narrative that explains this is under the social assistance focus area, right? Something like that. So that we can see very clearly that this is in alignment with what we're asking for.
Yeah, you might want in the narrative to tell us what it pertains to specifically. That will help us.
Yes, the more detail you can provide, the better.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So that's just a really brief overview on eligibility. We touched on the budget a little bit here. If you run into questions or issues with any of those, again, feel free to reach out. One more thing that I think we wanted to mention is part 4, right? So as you're filling out these questions, you'll notice a lot of them are very similar to the questions that were asked in that original round with the Olson contractor that put together that plan for the coordination plan and appendices. So some of these questions should sound familiar. So where can people go if they're wanting to keep a lot of their questions and their answers to those questions the same and not have to reinvent the wheel for this round?
So the application question section, you'll find like questions more related to your project. We want to know more about your project, like providing details. We get into the specifics there. So if your proposal is not any different from what you initially submitted in the awesome plan or the coordination plan, feel free to export your answers from there. If you feel like the questions are the same, you can just export your questions from there and paste them here, and so you can just save some time. And to do that, we can go back to our website, to DED webpage. So once we're there, there's a form.
So the coordination plan and appendices data request form.
Exactly. So once you get there, you can just fill out this form to get access to what you initially submitted. So once you receive it, if you feel like some of the questions are similar, feel free to just export them answers and fill out your application.
Yeah, so that's a great tool. If you're not sure what your proposal name or ID number is, again, you can visit the legislature's website to find the plan, track down what the name of the proposal and the ID number was.
Exactly.
Fill this out. We usually turn this around in about 1 business day or less, so we'll get you your answers as a Microsoft Excel file, and you can reuse those answers assuming nothing has changed. If you would like to update your answers, you don't have to keep your answers the same,
Sure.
but just we want to make sure that folks are still focused on the basic kind of scope that they were originally proposing in their original proposal. So we can't deviate too far from the original project in order for it to still be eligible. If you have questions about that, again, feel free to reach out to myself or Asatina or any of our staff, and we can help you understand what is kind of inbounds and out of bounds when it comes to changing answers on your proposal.
Okay, and that's only if your proposal is the same as the one you initially submitted in the coordination plan. In case it has slightly changed or anything, then you have to come up with new answers.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so that was really the main parts that we wanted to focus on in the application for today. If you have any questions, again, feel free to hit up the comments section with your questions, and we'll address those, and we'll get to those questions in just a second here. So are there any questions that we want to address kind of before we open it up to the audience? Are there questions, Asatina, that you've been hearing come through quite a bit that might be helpful for folks to know?
So the one question that I've heard repeatedly from many of you that have reached out to me to know more about the program is that even if if my organization was not recommended for funding, can I still apply? So that's one thing I've heard many times.
Yeah, so that's a great question. There were only a handful of organizations that were recommended for funding in that coordination plan. So if you were not recommended, you're in the majority. But what do you do in that case, right? So, basic eligibility for NSORG, you have to be listed in the coordination plan or appendices. So as long as you're in one of those, you can apply. What we're telling you is that for this category, we're not going to fund anyone above the amount that they were recommended for. So you're, again, welcome to apply. However, for this particular category, if you were recommended for $0, you're not going to be able to receive funding in this category for more than $0. So probably best in that case to look at some of the other opportunities available. And that will be something you can find on our website. Again, you can look at the application information section to get an overview of those different categories. There's the program manual, which lists the kind of outline on each of those different categories, so you can discern which category might be a better fit for you if you weren't recommended for funding.
Yes, the easiest way is just go to the NSORG program manual. Section 3 is eligibility for all our programs, NSORG programs. So there you'll be able to find like information about each and every program and know which category you fall under.
Absolutely. And if you're wanting to talk it through with someone, again, you're welcome to reach out to us. I also just want to throw a plug in for our office hours. So on the bottom of our website here, we have our office hours listed. We have office hours twice a week in our North Omaha office, twice a week in our South Omaha office at the hours that are listed there. You don't need an appointment. You can just walk in. And if you are listening to this and you're like, well, this is a bummer, I wasn't recommended, I can't apply for arts and social, or I don't want to apply for arts and social because I can only request up to $0, right? You can walk into one of our office hours and talk to a representative from DED there who can help you determine what might be a good next step for you as you continue through this process. So any other questions before we get to the audience?
Another question that I heard a lot is why is this particular program limiting eligibility to being recommended for funding? So that is one of the tough questions that I've received from many of you out there.
Right. So this is kind of along the same lines, right?
Exactly.
So in addition to what do I do if I wasn't recommended, the question is, why are we, limiting funding in this category to the amount you're recommended for in the first place? Why not have this be more open? And I think the answer to that is that we were instructed by LB 531. The legislation requires us to prioritize those projects that are listed in the coordination plan, those recommended projects. So that's really a way that we're able to prioritize them, by creating kind of this set-aside category for those recommended projects that pertain to arts, culture, and social assistance. Just to reiterate, just because you weren't recommended does not mean you are not eligible. There's 8 different funding categories in this program. And so we're trying to make sure that people are aware of all of their options, but also realistic about which options are going to be the best for them. And we're trying to be transparent that for this category, this is a category that we're really prioritizing and doubling down on prioritizing those proposals that were listed in the coordination plan. So, yeah. Great questions. I don't see any questions from the audience yet, so we might wrap up, and I'm hoping that means that we covered everything pretty well. So thanks again for joining me this morning, Asatina.
My pleasure, Ryan. I know many of you out there have been waiting for a video session like this, so here we are today because you've requested this. Yes.
Yeah, and we really did just scratch the surface on a lot of things today. So again, please don't hesitate to reach out to us for assistance if you have additional questions that we didn't cover today. If you're watching the recording of this and you have a question, feel free to leave a comment. We'll try to get to all the comments that were posted after the fact as well. And one more shout out to our frequently asked questions, which is under the program resources section on our website. I think we're up to about 90 questions. So we've got 19 pages worth of questions. And yes, we're up to 89 questions. So there is a chance that your question is one of these 89 that has already been asked. You're more than welcome to use those resources as you're working through this program to determine what your best steps might be. So thanks so much for watching. We're going to be back in just a minute with our next live session at 11:15 if you're watching live. And until then, take care.
Thank you for watching.